sit down together at night, aside from the father who ate at work in the evening or in the morning before everyone awoke. The children's only care in the world was hurrying home from school to do their homework, to watch a bit of TV before tucking in for bed. Life was always stable, routine, and she never heard of her parents complain about money, only about having no time. Dereck was a born risk taker. His parents had divorced when he was in his early teens. Both had their own lives to work through. He learned from his father to earn a living. Dereck was a born risk taker. His parents had divorced in his early teens, but both had their own lives to work through. He learned from his father to earn a living. His father always found a way to provide and earn a living. Yes, both his parents worked stable jobs but faced different issues. His father's department lost funding, the company decided to shut down, or layoffs were necessary to save some other aspect. His father's entrepreneurial spirit seemed to be harshly essential upon discovering there was truly no security within a job, only dependence or fear. His mother worked the same comfortable job for decades. The older Dereck got, the deeper his parents' ideological opposition became. His father wanted liberty, and his mother wanted more respect. Dereck learned his lessons and moved away from home to find his own way in life. Before meeting Amelia, Dereck lived by the seat of his pants. He relied on his wit and charm to find work around campus. The moment he felt unappreciated, he would quit without any warning and found a new job without any complaints. It would be a week or a month without steady or any income, but he was too busy enjoying life to notice. Money didn't control him, and fear of money wouldn't control his life. When he was a bachelor new to college, it meant nothing. Now living with Amelia, who was working every day, it made him feel emasculated and humiliated. They fought endlessly on Dereck wanting to leave the relationship as easily as he left his home or his jobs. If he knew Amelia loved him, it would likely change. Dereck believed he couldn't allow anyone to ruin his mood or his dreams. As much as Dereck cared for them all, they had their own lives to live. They would be fine. He wanted a life he had only seen others live, a life that the bills and poverty made seem lifetimes away. Amelia never understood how he would rather spend his time reading, watching hour-long videos, working on the computer, than going to work or partying. She felt the same pressure from her parents struggling for time together. Dereck has only learned one solution to relationship issues. So every argument, Dereck packed the bag to leave off on another adventure to add to his experience. He wasn't his father or mother. Their solution wasn't for him. He was only here because he wanted new solutions to an age-old problem. Amelia only wanted him to get a normal job so they were guaranteed to handle their bills. Dereck wanted her to open her mind to other reliable streams of income. Dereck didn't believe his job helped. She buried him applications for minimum wage jobs. In response, he showed her videos and books about entrepreneurship. Dereck said a job could do nothing for him. He felt like Amelia had no value or respect for him without a job. Amelia couldn't wrap her head around finding time to spend her paycheck or time starting a business that had a 50% chance to fail, just to gain experience. Their fighting never reached any fruition, thus their financial issues worsened. The first of the month passed, and they weren't on speaking terms to strategize paying bills or speaking with their landlord. The first late payment passed. Dereck had been learning from all the resources at his disposal, at the library or finding money through odd jobs and using the skills he built outside of college. He refused to tell Amelia. He believed that she couldn't love him for him. She didn't even deserve his time. As the bill collectors called, he would reluctantly offer to cover half. When his manhood was brought into question by the bill collectors, he would pony up the full amount. It was killing him and his savings. Amelia would be speechless, crossed between anger and surprise. Their life became her screaming at him as he glared at her in resentment. Dereck would slap hundreds of dollars in her hand before disappearing. When he would engage her, the fights would worsen, getting into dark, personal territory for them both, leading to more distance and secrets until Dereck stopped coming home altogether for days at a time. It was the 20th of October, and Amelia couldn't think about him without anger, sadness, disappointment, and dread. The last they spoke, he had only given her $150. and only because she spent the day telling him he was lazy, asking how could he sit around and watch her struggle. It was the first time he made it out the door with his bags in his hands. Amelia was furious. She didn't know how he was getting the money or if he was gone for good. She had the apartment to herself as the 1st of December approached. She packed her own bags after seeing the eviction notice from the late fees they accrued and never paid off. Their property manager didn't care how unfair it seemed. The property manager thought it was unfair they never paid on time. Amelia agreed in her shame. Amelia was intent to get over debt, going to work with a brave face as she alerted them all she was single. She needed a new roommate or apartment and enjoyed how the men who previously kept their distance had gotten even friendlier, flirting with her, offering her drinks after work or to come back to their apartment. None seemed to acknowledge ignoring her for the past months. None seemed interested in getting to know her or her actually moving in with them. They only wanted her treasure and dignity, ignorant that she had some self-respect. Dereck had been staying at a friend's place as he applied his studies in a major crash course called reality. He was notified about the eviction. Dereck watched video after video. He could survive, but he refused to allow Amelia to live for 7 years, unable to rent or buy a home because of him due to the eviction. Dereck had an unquenchable drive. Failure and setbacks only made him more game. Unbeknownst to Amelia, his dream wasn't to lie around doing nothing all day, but to never have to live under someone's thumb or authority other than his own. He wanted his own business, homes, and multiple streams of income. He hated seeing his parents place money at the center of their lives, sacrificing everything else. The generational curses of his forefathers were wreaking havoc on his life today. Dereck's childhood used to confuse him greatly. He never understood why, despite their financial issues, his parents wanted to keep up with the Joneses. They wanted to appear rich rather than to be wealthy. If he was alone, he could shrug off this burden of eviction. With Amelia all alone, he felt compelled to stand his ground and fix it. With every passing day, he wanted a life free from financial worry even more. The only question was, how? He learned at a young age that a job would prevent him from paying all his bills. Being a mule led by a rotten apple would take too long. He would never get a paycheck that reflected his effort. In the past, whenever he worked overtime, his extra earnings were devoured by unforeseeable expense, bills, or a night out. He didn't see any way to rise out of the situation or to his dreams. Dereck hated that his life was being consumed by financial worry, dread, and arguments like his parents. He hated even more how his entire life was doomed to work endlessly, and even still, he didn't have enough for what he needed. He had given away the $150 he earned raking lawns for his LLC to help Amelia out of resentment. It didn't matter. He had to start his business plan regardless. He hustled, walking to every nearby business offering his technical services. The age of digital marketing wasn't quite convincing for the small town hosting their college. They didn't want websites, search engine optimization, or social media marketing. Every day he embraced failure. It dug deep under his skin. All these businesses saw were a young kid. Some treated Dereck as a swindler, trying to separate them from hard-earned dollars with promises, not results. His war seemed to become internal, a war against his own mentality and perspective of self. He fought their doubts in him and the present technology shaping the world. Dereck knew the value of these classes he invested in and high-income skills he developed. He had left with little but the clothes on his back without a shave, which led his pitches after a time to seem nearly like begging for sympathy. He was able to finally find one client who took a shot on him, wanting him to hand out their flyers instead of his digital marketing pitch. Dereck seemed to have a knack for direct marketing. He abandoned his failing business idea to adjust into passing out flyers for 15 cents a handbill, abandoning his business dreams to earn as much as possible. He turned 15 cents a flyer into $50 to $60 a day. Those businesses that rejected him saw the young man hustling around town, promoting other businesses with a bright smile and charisma. They wanted him to spread their brand as well. He pivoted his concept quickly, leveraging his direct marketing skills and buying rubber bands to create advertising bundles. He was quickly earning 150 daily, then 180, up to 250 a day. His friend only wanted 200 if he ended up staying a full month. He needed $500 minimum to stop the eviction matched with Amelia's check, and $1,300 total to set the account back to even. He got to budgeting and strategizing the next 5 days. He had to push harder than ever before. The restaurants that picked up his services paid him partially in food to reduce their cash expense. Once his roommate saw the plan, he wanted to quit his job and join in. Dereck, however, advised against it. Now, seeing the dark side of entrepreneurship, it was no longer something for everyone to do. It was far from an easy route, and he missed the comfort of working only 5 hours a few days a week, virtually doing nothing with a guaranteed paycheck at the end of the week. It was, however, everything he wanted. It was pure liberty, but the trade-off was in his last 5 days. There was a day he made nothing at all because he had reached everywhere in the area and was told he needed to allow time to see the fruits of his labor. He was given a slight bonus or parting gift from his clients before needing to wait a week or two before continuing. Then it was back to figuring out the next move and how to gather income. Dereck had changed. Externally, his sneakers were beginning to speak out their heels. His jeans were ripped, stained, and tearing between his thighs and at the cuffs. His t-shirt had caked up under his armpits and around his neck, leaving a horrid odor. Internally, he had transformed entirely. He was getting close to the brink and days away from true homelessness. Forcing himself out of bed left him without his easygoing smile, but a stockpile of charismata. He no longer woke up with a withered smile, but with the ambition of a farmer waking up to till his wheat and sow seeds. Dereck had lost his dependence on mood or energy. If he didn't walk his beat, then he didn't eat. Professionalism carried him through his day. If he couldn't close deals or generate leads, then he was stuck in the same place without stability or a steady check. He felt like a hunter far from home. Most importantly, he didn't believe there was anyone left to blame but himself. Amelia had heard about what he did through a coworker who said he was begging for money. Teasing and insulting her ex to grow closer to Amelia, he told her how he was homeless and desperate. This made her suitors even more energetic, taking Amelia to parties and hanging out all hours in the night in hopes of getting lucky. Their favorite topic was insulting Dereck for being homeless and his desperation after losing Amelia. They didn't know Dereck stayed in a home with his own room, earning more money than their manager. Derek's previous disconnect manifested physically in his lifestyle, and no one could understand, and no one wanted to emulate him. Waking up to work in the morning was Derek's ultimate trial to overcome, and the nights proved to be a battle for Amelia's virtue. On the 29th, Amelia was told she had a visitor by a disgruntled male coworker. It was Dereck, sitting at the bar of the restaurant drinking an ice water. He heard the whispers and rumors, but paid the bewildered herd no mind. His beard had grown in small patches of stubble a simple shave could fix, but he refused to clean up for anyone but himself on his own time. His clothes were falling off his body from the weight he'd lost. Amelia was disgusted by his condition. In his hand he was clinging to his dream and hard-earned money. He spent none of it, eating a plate of fries the bartender brought him after seeing the money in his hands. Amelia's immediate reaction was pleading for him to return that night and end this drama, to end the month by her side and let the property managers try their best to kick them out. Instead, he gave her $500 in cash, saying, "I have no room for dream killers or gossip in my life anymore. The bartender told me about your new boyfriends." Amelia was enraged at him for rejecting her after all this time. She wanted to refuse the money. Work had been slow. Her hours were cut because she didn't want to sleep around with her coworkers, who began spreading rumors about her regardless. Her boss thought it was best to figure out her housing and relationship because of the dip in her performance and focus. She wanted to fight back with pride. Sadly, earlier that day, she got the smallest paycheck since starting to work. Not to mention, the only men who offered to help wanted far more in return than she would ever give. Dereck wanted nothing but her trust and respect. Despite everyone against him, he still came through without complaint or asking for anything in return. In her heart, soul, and mind, she was still Dereck's. It hurt to hear he rather live as a vagabond than to be loved by her, but what love was left when he had originally left due to their fighting? They would need to rebuild their entire relationship to continue. At least the apartment was safe, she lamented as she finished her shift. Amelia couldn't rest the entire night thinking of the money Dereck gave her and the empty beds she laid in. At least the other offers came with company, not a point to prove. She wondered if she should bother using the money. If he wasn't going to live with her, it would only be another month until she faced the same burden. She called him demanding he tell her how he got the money, as if that was her true concern. She was surprised he answered. She was astounded as Dereck explained everything he had been doing since the 20th. Amelia apologized for believing he was lazy or had become a beggar. She finally saw he was only trying to be himself, doing anything to feel free and in control of his own life. It took much more convincing, but he eventually returned home. Dereck came back by dawn. By morning time, he had showered, shaved, washed his clothes, and put on a fresh pair of clothes for what he left behind. They made love until sunrise, and Amelia made breakfast. As he ate eggs, pancakes, and beef bacon, his usual jokes and glimmer were absent. It had only been a little over a week, but Amelia noticed he still wasn't himself. Time passed by, and she began to notice the difference. He had the deeper coldness masking a burning ambition, even after being doused by another business idea failing. His clients simply no longer needed his services. He had done great, they said, but with those compliments, his earnings were set back at zero. He needed to start over again because the market dried up. Dereck had started a business, rent was paid for 2 months, bills were paid off, food was in the fridge, yet he couldn't enjoy it. He had no delight or energy. His stagnant financial situation caused such exhaustion, depression, and fear. He achieved his dream, but his inner man had never been healed or addressed. Dereck had more money in his bank than ever before, waiting to be used. Yet he never had any joy. He believed having enough money or having a business would solve his life. It only exaggerated all his flaws and insecurities. Amelia would find him filling out applications with delight, leaving for an interview only to return with even greater resentment and defeat. His greatest experience was an independent entrepreneur. He was labeled as overqualified or unhireable. Dereck had withdrawn from Amelia completely, unable to discuss his humiliation and frustration with his recent failures, especially not his success. Dereck would outright avoid her, quickly leaving the house when she would return home from work. Amelia was devastated that the man she loved had grown so hateful and angry. Their financial struggles stripped him of his innocence, joy, and will for quality time. Falling in love seemed to have happened so long ago, and maintaining it was a Herculean effort all its own. Amelia couldn't understand how Dereck's heart had grown so cold. His business efforts dried up. Depression consumed him. He would use the money he had left on smoking and drinking to get loaded daily, trying to hide his pain from Amelia and how deeply he's grown to resent himself. None of his former friends would speak to him for those rumors. The only time he seemed happy was after a few beers or blunts. He hadn't even unpacked his bag since he returned a couple weeks ago. He had given up avoiding Amelia to her delight, but to her dismay. He had given up on studying financial literacy and the skill building. The drugs had him now. Amelia had become an emotional wreck around the house. She longed for Dereck but hated him for slowly killing himself. She wished she had never asked him to return home to be miserable. As the new year approached, she feared asking him for money. Their emotions were so volatile, everything turned into a fight, bringing out the worst in both of them. All Dereck wanted was to feel needed, to be seen as a provider. Amelia needed to feel wanted and to support him. It's how they both felt in their hearts, but their fleshy egos refused to budge, to speak, to love, or to see the other doing the best a human being is capable of handling in the situation they found themselves in. Their relationship had all but dissolved entirely. They had themselves together purely based on what could have been, what once had been. Things as they currently were could easily destroy everything the two lovers had built. Only love could bring out such monsters in passion. What did you learn? Passion phase. Please use a separate notebook to answer these questions. I would also love to hear your answers, so email me at offredfc@gmail.com, and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. How do Dereck and Amelia differ in perspective on finances? Why does this affect their relationship? Should Amelia and Dereck focus on their finances first or their relationship? And why? Why was Dereck wrong in this chapter? How is Dereck right in this chapter? Why was Amelia wrong in this chapter? How is Amelia right in this chapter? What truly raised the money for rent? What truly raised the money for rent, and how could this have worked better? Chapter 2. Dereck was self-motivated and hated being told what to do. Despite his anger, he stayed on top of his chores, cooked on days Amelia worked, and kept to his studies. He was acting noticeably more introverted toward everyone in his circle. Rumors were floating he was homeless and begging for money, which made him refrain from traveling out of the apartment he had paid the account on. Amelia still loved him deeply, but was terrified of showing him. She saw all the signs he would leave again and kept from speaking her mind in hopes he would stay. She walked on eggshells, avoiding him entirely to prevent fights. Deep down, Dereck wanted nothing more than for her to show him interest. The less she did, the more distant he became. They were at an impasse, and the days ticked until their bills were due again. It was the 15th of January. Amelia had gotten extra shifts to avoid being home in the silence. People asked about Dereck. She told them he was never homeless and made great money. She defended him with every breath when he was away, but never spoke to him directly. The men who once flirted with her had backed off, seeing the grizzled and hearted Dereck picking Amelia up from work, wanting no part of his rage. In truth, Dereck had fallen into deep depression and drug abuse. He might have fallen into alcoholism, but he didn't like the feeling of being drunk. He felt like he lost his dream of true business ownership. He filled out applications for the work available in town. To keep his budget, he worked nights cleaning floors, buffering, and mopping. He earned only $8 an hour, but no one else would hire him. His boss was a local business owner who said, "There's money out there, but people don't want to work hard." Dereck would be away at night for 10 hours, returning at 4 to 7. However, he wasn't paid for the 3 to 5 hours of travel on a given night, so he only earned on 5 to 7 hours for his time. Exhausted for classes and hangovers, he was terrified of what his life could become on this path. He had no time left for himself, not unless he had given up on drugs, which he felt was the only thing keeping him functioning at all. Dereck had machinations of Amelia cheating on him with her coworkers, replaying the rumors from his so-called friends who questioned his success, and the pressure of bills kept him on edge. The prospect of working underneath someone until he died took away his will to live. Filling out job applications, doing his chores, and his online classes were all he could do to feel like a man, to feel human with some control over his fate. He cut back on his drinking, but his smoking felt like his only solace. When Amelia came home this particular night, he smelled of whiskey and Everclear. She went straight to the bedroom and locked the door. It broke his heart every day. His mind drifted between suicide and business ideas. When he didn't have any drugs, his lost will to live was obvious, not wanting to participate in his loveless relationship or speak about his broken dreams. Amelia came home one day to find him writing a letter. Tears fell down his face from the ruminations. She fought everything inside her from speaking to him, turning up her nose and locking the bedroom door behind her as she did every day. It was all Dereck could take as he finished his letter, his last will and testament. He tried his last chance at communicating with Amelia. Knowing he no longer wanted to live, she refused to come to the door, screaming at him from the other side. Dereck was a heavy-set man with the power to kick the door in, as he had done earlier in the relationship. He had no more energy for the rage or arguments. All he felt was pain anymore. He took his belt from around his waist, knowing the ceiling fan wouldn't support his weight. He returned to the living room, sitting on his knees and turning up the TV as he wrapped the belt around his neck. Clasping in tight, with no room for his fingers to even create air between his skin and the leather. He felt his heart beating out of his chest as his fear response sparked, telling him to stop. He swore against his cowardice. Feeling death was better than living as a failure. He wrapped the belt around his fist as his body began to convulse, gagging as it fought for life. He could no longer hear the TV, the birds chirping outside, or Amelia screaming from the other room to turn down the TV. His skull felt like it would pop as the blood swelled to his head. He attempted to take his last breath, but collapsed on the floor as his heart slowed down to a stop. Amelia ran out to yell at him for all the noise. To her shock, he was passed out, blood trickling from his mouth, nose, ears, and eyes. She cried mournfully over him, calling 911 in hysterical panic, crying over his motionless body until the paramedics arrived. While loading him up, they found the suicide letter by his body. He was unconscious, but not dead. They resuscitated him in the ambulance. At the hospital, they treated his internal bleeding to the best of their ability. All he could do now was recover and rest. When Dereck awoke in the hospital, he was bewildered and enraged. He refused all guests. His friends, his family, and Amelia sat in the waiting room praying he would change his mind. They didn't understand what they had done, but Amelia had read the letter, unsure when to bring it up. January 15th. To you traitors. You're all probably relieved. Finally I quit dreaming, and you can say I told you so amongst yourselves. Yuck it up, because I would rather die than live as a debt slave like you all. I had amazing ideas that can change the world, but you all refused to support me or even listen to what I had to say. I can't do it alone, and I won't live struggling to be around people who don't believe in me. I hate this world of debts, bills, and barely enough. I hate how you all keep trying to justify it and go along like sheep doing nothing to put an end to the suffering on this planet. So be happy, rejoice, and burn everything I ever owned in a bonfire. You won't get none of it. You should have helped me when you had the chance. Now I'm gone. Laugh it up and party hardy, because my dream is dead, and each of you hold a knife covered in its blood. None of you even cared to listen to me. You, Dereck and Amelia Hoffman. After his father tearfully and reluctantly read the letter out loud, he wore a stern face. He had only wanted his son to be stable and apply himself. His mother was hysterical and could barely breathe, knowing her baby boy could feel such a way. A few others left out of guilt, feeling responsible as deeply as they removed themselves from Dereck's life for good. Amelia had shut down completely, unable to function, answer questions, or process her reality. All Amelia could think about was how she let her pride nearly kill the love of her life, how she turned her heart off to live with him. The primary doctor came to the waiting room to inform Dereck's parents and Amelia that the boy had fallen asleep. Though it was unorthodox, it might be the only time for them to see him. Only his parents went. Amelia was offered, but she felt so guilty. Why couldn't she trust him and love him? Now he was near death, but at least he was alive. There had to be time, right? Amelia picked herself up, going after his parents. His father helped her to stay standing, but his mother refused to speak or even look at Amelia. The belt strap had dug so deep into his neck, it left scars, making it difficult to sleep. When they arrived, Dereck had been half awake. The immense pain kept him in and out of consciousness. He heard them come in the room, but was too weak to scream, curse them, or call the nurse to remove them. His anger, pain, and feelings of rejection paralyzed him, bubbling up inside him. It was palpable, so none of them touched his body, happy he was alive, and back away. Afraid he would do something drastic in his anger, more afraid of how deeply his words would cut after reading the brief letter. They sat around the room, the people who should have been closest to Dereck, realizing they hadn't been involved in his life at all for the past several months. None of them knew how he felt. The letter added no clarity. What happened? His father finally asked Amelia. Amelia looked at his mother, afraid to speak out. It's okay. I'll get his side when he wakes up, and hopefully he'll calm down. I've never known he was so upset, ever. He was always a happy kid. Did you two get into a fight? He asked. We weren't speaking. We had been fighting every day for months. He moved out for a week. I begged him to come back, but I felt like he hated me. We didn't speak or sleep together anymore. I would just yell at him or avoid him. Then this. How could you ignore him? You're the only one he had. His mother was frenzied. I know. I was afraid he would leave again. Amelia began shutting down again. His mother wanted to rail into her, but wouldn't waste the time. She had always been very hard on Dereck for not working regularly. He often came to her with ideas, and she shot them all down before he had a chance to finish. She wasn't interested in anything other than him finishing school and getting a job. Instead, he kept trying new things, refusing to be dissuaded, and growing more distant as he grew older. She saw no harm in trying to get her son to fly straight. His mother never knew how deeply he truly felt about his dreams, how ignoring her son made him feel all these years. My son. His father began but covered his eyes as tears fell. His father wished he had gotten closer to his son, but he was trapped in his own rat race, recovering from his divorce the best way he knew how. He felt he lost his family when he left. He had no idea how much his son still needed him. He had no idea how his son was chasing behind his footsteps. Dereck had a long road to recovery. His neck would heal, but his doctors thought his emotional state was fragile. He had to spend at least a month under maximum surveillance as his physical recovery enabled him to try taking his life 2 more times. He was moved to a psych ward for observation. The orderlies often caught him crying in his room for hours. He refused his medications. He made cryptic jokes about jumping out the window or morbid proclamations he wouldn't leave the loony bin alive. He played with most of his therapists until the head psychologist returned. A hardened, logical, detached old man named Aleister Huxley. An atheist man fascinated with death and suicide. Dereck was a shock to him. How could a young man with such vigor and health desire death? He was a phenomenon to Dr. Huxley. A mystery the old man had to understand. The first meeting was as follows. Mr. Hoffman, is it? Death is quite final. Some believe in an afterlife. I'm not one of those convinced. I know I have this life alone, at least. Do you believe in an afterlife? Is that why you're rushing so quickly out of this one? Dr. Huxley had a sinister grin and no sympathy. How about you mind your damn business if none of you think I can own one? Dereck scoffed, returning the same apathy. Dr. Huxley was taken aback, cleaning off his glasses before putting them back on. He stared at a defiant young man who stared at him with analytical eyes. The boy was barely halfway through his 20s, filled with energy, quiet and studying the doctor. You are my business, until I no longer deem you a danger to yourself or others. Dr. Huxley finally responded. Humbug! Dereck rolled his eyes. Young man, why? I've done nothing to you. We're just meeting. Dr. Huxley began to take offense. You're all the same. You want what you want from me, and it's all for your ego and comfort, not mine. You want to break me down, make me feel crazy, or worse. You feed off this beast system like a leech. I don't want the beast system. I wanted liberty and my own business. If I can't work for myself, I'd rather die. What type of life can be lived working paycheck to paycheck? You blame me? You blame my generation for being born into this horrendous situation your generation created? Slavery was already wrong, right? Then why should I live in wage slavery for the rest of my life? You're the crazy one, old man. Dereck expressed from the bottom of his heart. Dr. Huxley was intrigued, rubbing his naked chin as he waited for the man a third of his age to stop breathing fire. Owning your own business doesn't mean you won't live paycheck to paycheck. You'll have greater struggles in a business than a job can ever offer. Struggles most people are not equipped to handle without the inevitable failure and personal compromise. Why would a suicidal man want to embark on a pathway of stress? I am not suicidal. Dereck crossed his arms, looking away. Nor are you quite old enough to fully be considered a man. My question still stands. Why would someone who had killed themselves want a business? Dr. Huxley hoped Dereck could understand why he asked. If you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then success will be as natural as air. Dereck recited from one of his favorite motivational videos. So, you strangled yourself with your own belt. Past the point where the brain's natural reaction is to stop. For success. Dr. Huxley read the files in front of him, looking at the gruesome intake photos. I didn't die, did I? And I'll either jump off this building or be a successful businessman. Dereck was convicted. You'll never be successful if your backup plan is to kill yourself. I'll keep you in a padded room until you're as old as me if it keeps you alive, Mr. Hoffman. Dr. Huxley lamented. The doctor had to admit, he was swayed by the youthful thrill and dream, but he couldn't ignore how unhealthy and misguided Dereck had become. The boy had all the drive in the world, but his desire lacked any reality of how difficult his dream was to truly accomplish. There would still be so much hardship to undergo to reach where he wanted to go. The idea wasn't out of reach, but the boy would need to live for another 2 to 5 decades before he saw the results he wanted. Not to mention those first 5 years he would need to be performing at his highest level. A business was no guarantee to stay afloat. It was a massive risk. A business was another method, a good method, but it didn't replace a job. He would own a job without knowing if he'll ever be paid. Huxley kept this to himself instead of sharing. This wasn't a session to argue. Can I help you with your business plan? Dr. Huxley took a fresh notepad from his desk and opened up to the first page. He wrote Dereck's name on the cover and handed him the book. I trust you not to stab yourself with the pen. Dereck gulped, unable to respond. His temper had disappeared, having no idea how to feel. Dereck nearly broke down into tears, but fought them in silence before the old man. No one had ever offered to help him before. They wanted the success without the effort. Dr. Huxley had never heard someone so convicted it drove them to insanity. It was a rough road ahead. The doctor had to be patient, eliciting information from Dereck about his family, his life, and Amelia, as they focused primarily on creating a plan of action. There was a futile effort trying to get deeper into Dereck's mind. Their sessions centered on the creating a business plan and giving Dereck a concrete sense of reality for his vision. It doubled as a 5-year plan to give Dereck deeper guidance. In a couple of weeks, Dereck was thanking Dr. Huxley, returning to his childlike wonderment about life and business. Dr. Huxley, in turn, had grown attached to the young man. He appreciated how genuine and ambitious Dereck had been. However, the cynical old man had more to teach Dereck. Some things about a reality he knew Dereck would struggle to accept. This is quite possibly the finest business plan I've ever witnessed. I've seen hundreds. Enough to know at the end of the day, it is still only a plan. I know, Doc, Please, let me finish. I know you're excited, and at times your confidence exceeds your ability. I've seen only 75 of those plans make it past the idea phase in any capacity. Afterward, only 5 succeeded and still have their business. So 25 dropped out from the limp, 70 more couldn't hack it, and I'm 101. I'm a different story, Doc. I believe you're certainly in the top 15 percentile. However, if a man will kill himself if he fails, he'll will never persevere to fix his mistakes. If he is like you and attempts to deny reality and turn to deny responsibility or the obvious care for his own life as a first resort, not a last one, how would he ever receive the needed critique or outright rejection, inevitable on a daily basis in business? Dr. Huxley had a grim disposition. You got me all wrong, Doc. I had a business before I got in here. I made it work. I dealt with rejection, criticism, and failure. I did it all for my girlfriend. People kept telling me she was cheating on me, and all the guys who wanted her. I fought harder because of it. Then when I finally won, I paid off our rent and came home, and we had a chance to make things work. She wanted to do nothing but argue. The things she said haunted me. The fears of losing her, and that I wasted so much trying to open her eyes. I would sit in the apartment and I felt useless. The person I did it all for didn't care, didn't approve, and refused to help me. She avoided me. We fought endlessly. My business dried up for sure, but it wasn't anything I couldn't fix. My parents hardly talked to me. I think the hospital was the first time I had seen them all year. I wanted to stop existing because I didn't feel like there was anything left. I didn't want to die, Doc. I just couldn't imagine getting through the rest of college, my relationship, or trying to rebuild things with my family after I strayed so far for them. I can't live like them, bro. Dr. Huxley had nearly spit out his coffee. Oh boy, young love. So toxic and tumultuous, yet innocent and pure. This was all for a girl? I feel guilty not telling you, but I also feel embarrassed. If it was any other girl, I couldn't care less what she thought of me. I love Amelia. Apparently more than life itself. My family, I accepted they were messed up. Amelia seemed to solve everything. Hearing her say those things to me destroyed me. Dereck began to cry. He hasn't heard from his family or Amelia since entering the asylum's care. Suddenly the resentment has fled his body. The hope of rubbing his success in everyone's face muted him, muted his emotions. He hoped he would power through, but he felt alone. Dr. Huxley spoke on how important a successful support system was for anyone pushing against the grain. Do you have any friends left after your arrogance abducted your life? Dr. Huxley asked if he was asking his younger self. Dereck shook his head, letting the few tears that managed to escape his armored heart trickle onto his business plan. I suggest you do something I was too afraid to do at your age. Something that is too late to do in my current age. Write down the names of 15 people, at least. Call them and ask them for their support. The ones you struggle to speak with or who refuse to listen to your story will likely be of no use to you. However, it might surprise you who have been waiting to help you, especially this Amelia. He sang her name, giving Dereck a wink. It's her fault I'm in here. I just told you that, Dereck growled. It's your fault you're in here. She's the reason you're alive, no? Unless you managed to call the ambulance while unconscious. You need to give her more credit. Even if you do hold her responsible. Do you not deserve more from her? Be a man and ask her for it, Dr. Huxley enforced. Thank you, Doc. Dereck nodded, preparing to leave after hearing the needed action. There is far more we must discuss that will surely upset you and your delusions of success. I'm not done. Please sit unless you've had enough. Let's say we are ready to take things to the action phase. It takes healthy people persisting over 2 to 3 years at their wits' end to finally reach their business goal. That's if they've worked on things full time. 3 years without wasting their time and effort on busy work for the sick satisfaction of pseudo-success. Most don't realize after all the futile time they've spent, wondering why they cannot pay their bills. Why? They only worked part-time for 5 years, for all their time. They tell themselves they are busy. They don't work for results. You cannot eat your dreams or personality. You'll need a job. Even I have a career despite owning many businesses. You need a formal education to fall back on. Return to college. Even online or going to trade school might help someone like you. A support system is wonderful. However, you must support yourself. Even God himself cannot help you if you refuse to help yourself. And sadly, most people never help themselves. A business is a good long-term plan, yes. You need to survive in the meantime and midterm. Having a good job is an irreplaceable source of income. This is what enables you to create resplendent success. Dr. Huxley gave his sermon. By the end, he was staring in rage at the reflection of his younger self. You wasted all my time to take me in a loop, Dereck growled, matching him eye to eye. Young fool. You believe it's I on a loop? I've lived my life, achieved my success. You are neither seeing nor feeling anything new for 10,000 years before you were even conceived. No one on this planet likes working for a living. No one liked running from predators, hiding in caves, or walking miles for refuge or water either. That's why we have jobs, civilization, and this system everyone tries desperately to escape with drugs, crime, and suicide. However, people find careers they love. With some education, ways to be of service to the community, but most complain at a meaningless job. You will struggle to have a business if you cannot commit to a single relationship, a four-year degree, or a full-time job. These build character, skills, resilience, expertise, and reputation, everything that you will need to be successful. It teaches you how to discuss your issues with people who feel as you do. Even if they won't do what you do, which is having a business or taking their life because of how they feel, you can be as angry or heartbroken as you want, like the rest of us, waking up every morning to go to work or to raise children. Your perspective, your ideas, your ways, and your impatience will kill you. You must see the light, or I can't release you. I will give you a 5-year plan. Wonderful. That's the easy part. You can be here for 5 years if it's success or death. Will you be alive in 5 years? Or would you have attempted on your life again too soon? I want to see you successful. Hell, you can even rely on God. If you can't rely on yourself, there is no point to any of this if you don't see bettering yourself as your only true option. You cannot succeed if you don't even want to breathe. That's your example. No. Dr. Huxley finally saw the mirror fade away, wiping away the perspiration and passion from his brow, hoping he had finally cured Dereck. Instead, he felt like he was meeting his own self for the first time. Dereck felt defeated. He fell back in his seat. The depression consumed him again. All the trust he had for Dr. Huxley was in question. He felt trapped and lost again. He cried, running out of Dr. Huxley's office back to his room. He cried until sunset. He cried until he was exhausted, unsure why he was shedding tears at this point. He never disliked his jobs or life. He just felt he needed to do more to survive. Yet there was no more to be done. He had become so alone and isolated for no reason. His pain was immense, being in this world but not of it. Yet he didn't abandon his friends for God, but instead for his own deluded ego. Dereck humbled himself, clasping his hands and speaking to the God above bar below, hoping his pleas reached. Please help me. Please help me, God. Dereck pleaded in his final act of desperation. A force told him to rest, so he surrendered to sleep. Even playing sports, he never knew such exhaustion. Near death, his emotions were so volatile and bitter like a poison. 12 hours had passed before he awoke refreshed. Dereck felt renewed and at total peace with his life. He looked around the asylum bedroom he's called his home for a month, feeling as though his prayer had been answered, able to accept it all, everything the doctor said as truth. If the doctor lied, he would be able to fight it and know he didn't belong. He lay back on his bed, able to finally feel part of the human experiment. He wasn't alone. He was vocal about a world everyone wanted to deny. No, he had seen exactly what the doctor said every day. When he slept, he had dreams of his family, Amelia, and his old friends back from his freshman year. They didn't resent him. He was the only one able to say what they had all felt, and felt forced to live in. Dereck thought he could escape, but there was nothing to escape. There was no one against him, no matter what. You had to live on this planet until you died. You choose how you live, you choose your job, you choose to be educated or not, you choose to complain or obey. Yet, few chose the pathway to freedom the doctor had written. 5 years and he could be free, if only he compromised only to fate and God. Dereck looked over the business plan a few more times before falling to sleep for a few more hours. He woke in time for breakfast, eating every bite as if it was his first day on Earth. He no longer saw crazy people. He saw people like himself who couldn't see or accept fate. These were once innocent children who reality broke over its knee. How does someone turn out when the simple world they once knew slowly dissolved to this broken system humanity had sacrificed for sin thousands of years ago? These were the victims of insanity average people lived in every single day. They needed help that may not exist on this planet. They needed compassion that had fled Earth after Rome, Babylon, and Britannia. What did you learn? The thinking phase. Please use a separate notebook to answer these questions. I would also love to hear your answers, so email me at offredfc@gmail.com, and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. What was the actual issue Dereck said he's facing? What is Dr. Huxley's final advice? Why do you think Dr. Huxley avoids Dereck's emotional trauma? Do you agree with Dereck or Dr. Huxley? Why? I do understand Dereck's story seems very extreme. However, many people do suffer deeply for starting a business. What are 3 things one can do to be successful in business? How many people succeeded? Do you think luck or character makes a successful business owner? Why is it good to have a stable job? Why is it good to have a 5-year plan? What are 3 long-term goals you hope to accomplish in 5 years? What are the actual steps to achieve these 3 goals? Write them down or print them out. What are 5 midterm goals you can accomplish in 2 to 3 years? What are some daily 20-minute actions you can take to prepare yourself for becoming the person necessary to achieve your 5-year plan? Schedule your week around these 20 minutes, first thing in the morning or in the afternoon during lunch, or after you've worked at your stable job. Chapter 3. Amelia could no longer care whether or not Dereck hated her. She came to visit him without notice. As she waited, she saw a man who looked like Dereck sweeping the lobby. He wore headphones, humming to one of Dereck's favorite songs, but his energy seemed so foreign. He wasn't dressed as an orderly or patient. Instead, he wore normal jeans, running shoes, a baseball cap, and looked as if he'd been working out for a month since his suicide attempt. She had been faithful up till then, watching the man move across the entire room with such focus and mastery of the broom. Amelia had rarely seen a man so engulfed in what he was doing. There was such a simple peace to the man's presence. It calmed her heart, until a nurse approached the man, tapping his shoulder, then pointed to Amelia. Her jaw dropped, seeing the man who had such peace and joy was her Dereck of all people. "How are you?" Dereck asked from across the room while taking off his headphones. "Dereck!" Amelia cried out, running to embrace him. Dereck was caught off guard by her presence. He felt unprepared as she squeezed him, feeling his muscled arms. "I thought we had mountains to climb before you wanted to speak to me again." God moved our mountains and turned the distance to speed bumps. He wrapped an arm around Amelia. They kiss while he lifts her off the ground. "I'm so sorry. You thought I was angry at you? I thought you hated me." Amelia blushes. "Well, if I made any sense, I wouldn't be in therapy, right?" He joked lightly. "Why are you sweeping?" she asked. Dereck rolled his eyes, muttering under his breath and kicking the broom away. "What?" Amelia asked, sincerely cupping her ear. She told herself she would listen this time. "That's my... He repeated even lower, kneeling down to pick up the broom with more care, holding it to his chest. "Dereck, I'm trying my best, but I can't understand what you're saying," Amelia whined. "I said it's my job." The doc gave me a job to get over my hang-ups. It's like reality and therapy together. You happy now?" He groaned, hoping only he would know. "I'm only happy you're alright. I don't care whether or not you have a job as long as you're not doing anything illegal to make money. You think I'm happy you're here? I miss you. I thought you hated me this entire time. Not sitting in Zen like you discovered inner peace or something." Tears began rolling from Amelia's eyes as she innocently gazed at him. "Well, I thought you cheated on me. Either before, if not while I was in here. I feel like a jackass now." He slapped his forehead. "That's what this is all about? I would never do that, Dereck. I'm not that type of girl," Amelia cried out, wanting to smack him. "Well, not specifically cheating on me. You never spoke to me anymore. I thought you had left me because of my job and depression. You came home, you would lock yourself in the room. You wouldn't even look at me," Dereck explained, remembering the days before trying to strangle himself. "Whenever I did, we would fight. You looked so hurt whenever I wouldn't support you," Amelia expressed. Dereck grew quiet, clutching his broom tight. "Well, I guess I did hate you for a while. You hurt me so badly. It's not healthy, but only your opinion mattered to me. I had to be diagnosed as crazy for my ambitions. You wouldn't even try to understand me, Amelia. I only wanted us to start a business together. I thought it would help us focus on life outside of money and have more time for what mattered, and he didn't care at all. He shut me out completely. He made me do it alone. Even after my business idea saved our apartment." "I'm sorry. You're completely right. I didn't understand. I didn't want to understand it, honestly. I don't know how to deal with you, all just like you do." Amelia was hoping he would hug her. The distance between them felt so cold. "I'm not dealing with it. I tried to kill myself. It's my first time living just like you and everyone else." Dereck bowed his head in shame, closing his eyes to avoid looking at the broom. "I'll listen now. I'll talk to you. I just don't ever want to lose you. I don't ever want you to hurt yourself like this again." "I don't have to hurt myself ever again. I have a 5-year plan now. I felt alone and helpless. The doc says the aloneness will be there as long as I pursue a business and debt freedom. Moreover, I survived. I don't ever have to feel helpless again. I wouldn't have lived if there wasn't a purpose for me here, you know?" Dereck put on a brave face, staring at Amelia with a burning resolve that warmed her soul. "No, I guess you don't." Amelia wiped her eyes, believing his every word. It was the second time in her life she couldn't recognize Dereck. She felt guilty, as if she was cheating on the man she had known for the man he was becoming. Is it wrong that I find this version of you more attractive? Amelia wiped her braids from her face, biting her lip. I would honestly be offended if you didn't. This version of me is a lot healthier and stronger, more focused. He winks, pulling her closer. Amelia kissed him, leaping into his arms and holding onto his neck for dear life. The two ate lunch in the cafeteria. A baked potato bar, barbecue chicken, and collards was the lunch special of the day. They caught each other up on their lives. Though Amelia didn't want to address it with him, it was the first of the month and rent was due. She needed $1,000 and wouldn't be paid for a week. Amelia tried to brush off the late fee. Dereck knew because of their payment history the litigious lawyer would likely take her to court. As Amelia tried to steer the conversation away from the subject, Dereck's mind filled with ideas to fix it. For Amelia, it seemed like a heartbreaking amount. It would devour her entire paycheck and leave her with nothing but the instant meals in the freezer and pantry for 2 weeks. Dereck was unmoved. He kept a copy of his business plan in his pocket to remind himself it'll come to fruition before his eyes. Amelia was amazed by the details. The two went over the plan intently. Amelia couldn't grasp the bigger picture of the plan. She questioned every detail and decision until she understood how it would solve their immediate problem. As much as it frustrated Dereck, he understood it was because she didn't know any better. It wasn't her vision, and she wasn't there over the weeks it took to create the plan. If he ever wanted investors, he would have to withstand even deeper questioning. Oh, wow. This seems great, but you would need $15,000 to get started. Amelia pouted, ready to call it a day, and let him rest before he got overexcited. That's 15 grand with a storefront and the best equipment. If I scale things down, I only need a computer and a few clients. Dereck was stirred to get his idea across as a seasoned pro. Amelia bit her lip. How does this help exactly? I mean, I'm very impressed for when you get home, but it says it'll take 2 to 5 years. How do we make this work? Dereck finally grinned, feeling as if he outwitted Dr. Huxley and the landlord. Think about it like this, Amelia. We would only need 2 accounts to pay off rent before the 5th. We can get $1,000 without a late fee. Yeah, but how? Even if you got 2 people, how long would it take? Amelia wondered. We ask for a portion up front, and the other half when the work is completed. Even if we only get 1 account, I'll help. I have my custodial job here, and I get paid this week. It's not like I need my paycheck until the doc clears me to go home. You're paid next week and keep the whole thing. You just need to find 1 client, and I'll find another. God, please help us. Help us make this work. Dereck finalized with a prayer, wiping sweat from his nervous brow. Amelia didn't know what to say. She trusted him, conceding to help him knowing he would be successful. His energy was different from last month, fearless and serious. Amelia was smitten, feeling in a daze as they each created a contact list of 20 people or businesses that might be interested. Dereck held on to a support system list of 10 folks who responded, creating 50 names. It was a numbers game, and they only needed 2 people who were in need. They practiced a simple script to describe their service. By the time her visit was over, Bethel Business Solutions was born. His beloved Amelia was fired up and overjoyed. She had decided to come after hearing his voicemail. She began calling people as soon as she got on the train for home. The first few numbers she called to practice the script while it was still fresh in her mind. By the time she reached her transfer, she recruited 4 clients, and one was willing to pay the full amount up front as long as the work started immediately. Dereck had only managed 1 client by nightfall. With how difficult calling a support system had initially been, he was happy to have gotten that much. His list was exhausted, and by bedtime his social battery was depleted. Amelia, however, had been so excited she finished her list long ago and began writing another through the night. Her rent was paid off in the morning, with more than either of them had made in a month sitting in her bank account. Dereck's paycheck was a gift to Amelia, but sadly Dr. Huxley had to leave to lecture across country. Dereck was released without a goodbye or any difficulty. If only Alistair had known the impact he left on the boy. Everything Dr. Huxley did to dissuade Dereck only inspired him. Though the good doctor wouldn't have left a patient if they were truly in need. Huxley was only called in for patients who were unlikely to ever leave a mental asylum. It was a joy he never knew to be able to release a patient back to society. What did you learn? Whatever it is you're working on, listen to the still small voice in your conscience. Take action. I understand the only way to not fail is to never try. You must understand the only way to succeed is to never give up. Pace yourself according to your own style and your own goals. The action phase. Write a 10-person support system. Call them each over 10 days or one day. I'm learning how to love myself and better love others. I wanted to know if you could check in on me a bit more. Don't be worried, it's just for a book. This is done. If you have a business, write a list of 10 people who have pain points in your industry. Create your own opener, or be natural. If you have a project, write a list of 10 people. Be specific about what you are doing with the money and how this will add value to their life, your community, or to advance a field, and then ask for donations. If you have a family, write a list of 10 relatives and take initiative in having a family gathering. Maybe only invite your favorite relatives for this one. With that, go on to the 4th chapter. Chapter 4. It had been quite some time since Dereck visited the asylum that saved his life. Whenever he attempted to reach Dr. Huxley or his secretary, there was a delay, a trip, or no response. For better or worse, Dereck decided to face Dr. Huxley directly. Dereck had to breathe deeply the entire way. He tried to ease his nerves all the way to the office. It was nearing New Year's Day, and he hadn't seen the doctor in a year since his release early in November. The new secretary nervously led Dereck to Dr. Huxley's inner sanctum where it all began. Dr. Huxley opened his office door with shock as he saw his old patient. The only one he could never bear to face again. The octogenarian's eyes bulged out of his head as Dereck joyously embraced him. The good doctor patted Dereck on the shoulders, unsure if it was the same man he had counseled. Dereck was dressed smart in a pair of fitted black jeans with a plain white Oxford and a tailored blazer. The young man looked far different than the tattered jeans and t-shirt from their first meeting. "How are you, Mr. Hoffman?" Dr. Huxley sincerely asked. "I'm wonderful." "I'm actually great, man. How are you?" Dereck's enthusiastic energy was on a higher vibration. It wasn't his obvious smile, but the grand warmth radiating from his body. "It's very good to see you've adopted ties around your neck rather than your belt." Dr. Huxley's grim grin noted the change of appearance. "Honestly, I think the tie and the top button might be tighter than the belt," Dereck chided. The same strange sense of humor. "That's a good sign," Dr. Huxley applauded. "Gotta laugh not to cry sometimes, right?" "So how's everything with the family? Any New Year's plans?" Dereck bounced with noticeable excitement. "Sadly, I live alone, Dereck. I spend most of my time here, especially the holidays. It's been quite some time since I've celebrated the holidays, a few decades, in fact." Dr. Huxley brushed off the cold feeling of pain. "I'm having a party," Dereck blurts out, then holds out a folded invitation. Dr. Huxley was hushed, looking up at Dereck, who came all this way during the holiday season to hand-deliver an invitation. Dr. Huxley began wiping his eyes, dropping the folded invitation, causing the check to fall into his desk. Alistair was going to act as though he was cleaning fogged glasses, but could not hide his reddening eyes as he lifted the check for $1,000. He opened his mouth, but was at an utter loss for words. Wow, just how? Dr. Huxley couldn't fathom such a thing. "I got out of the thought phase early on and spent the action phase properly scaling my business. This forced me to adjust my projected budget for the past year. The new budget enabled me to reinvest into the business to eliminate many of my expenses. Without those expenses, I was able to invest in more lucrative projects, Dereck explained. Yes, but when did this all begin? Dr. Huxley hadn't expected such progress for at least another 2 years. To make it simpler, I guess I scaled things down to a level where I had no expenses. After our last meeting, I took your advice and prayed. We took your advice and made a contact list that ended up having 100 names. Initially, our list only had about 50. Then Amelia called another 50 people herself. It started with only 10 customers who needed our service. Then we got 30 referrals a few months later. I had to hire a new tech to help with the demand. After those 40 clients, we got 120 referrals. Business kept coming in. And then I had a small team to do more work. I'm rich now, Doc. Astounding. I had no account for such a miraculous response. Dr. Huxley cleaned his glasses, trying to ensure his vision hasn't betrayed him. It didn't happen overnight. I still had months in between where there were no customers at all. So those people I hired came on as independent contractors for tax purposes. We did a lot of follow-ups as well. The budget and the business plan honestly kept us grounded. I had to pay it back to you since you paid it forward. Dereck wipes his eyes as the doctor's emotions became contagious. I haven't received anything so grand in decades. Dereck, thank you. Huxley let out a pun. Well, you used to seem upset I nearly killed myself. Now you seem pretty happy we met, huh? Dereck japed. God, there must be a line, even with yourself. Dr. Huxley chuckled, wiping away his tears of sorrowful joy. The line, and with the memory, it's all behind me now. I have a future thanks to you. You gotta come to the party. It's gonna be a classy affair at my new house. A house, my boy? Maybe we should talk more on financial management, Dr. Allister said with grief, recollecting his friends who spent their money before they had made it. Hold on now. Amelia got a career in her field. I taught her your 70-20-10 rule for budgeting. It's a rent-owned house that costs less than our apartment. You sneered, feeling clever. You're a brilliant man. No wonder they institutionalized you. Dr. Huxley smiled. They hold a brother back because he's a genius, Dereck scoffed. This all sounds wonderful. I'll be at your event at 7:30 sharp. I'm proud of you and Amelia for surviving this ordeal. But I cannot accept your check. Consider this my investment into your future and advancement. Dereck looked hurt, but played it off. It's a Pyrrhic victory then, okay? How about you just put it in a picture frame? If you're worried, I can write it off for my taxes. Use it to fix the creepy lighting in here. It's definitely a true victory. I'm very proud of you. Dr. Huxley held out his arms. Geez, Doc, is this your first hug in decades, too? Dereck asked with a blush as he stood up. Now, I'm not that heartless. Perhaps it's been a month, or a year. Alistair winks, embracing his young ward. They hugged briefly, then let each other go. Alistair squeezed Dereck's shoulder before letting him go, once again wiping his eyes. Dereck couldn't help but laugh. When we first met, you had this Dr. Death vampire vibe. Now, you almost seem human. Dereck nudged him in the arm. I'm glad you're alive. This world we live in takes so many, if not in death. It takes the heart and mind. I rarely say this, but thank you, God Almighty. Dereck had felt the pressure he had never felt before. His life had always been his own, yet so many people loved and respected him. He hadn't realized after his near death he was never living on the planet for himself. He hadn't been conscious of it before. Now he knew he had to offer more back to society and others in his situation. What did you learn? High performance phase. When you begin a jogging hobby, things begin very difficult. Over time, however, you find your groove. You challenge yourself to see how far, how fast, or the sights your feet can take you. Stagnation prevents this because the task of starting seems too difficult. Let's begin. Set a budget utilizing only food, shelter, and transportation. That is it. If needed, include debt or savings. If you have debt to repay, allow this debt to stay at a 15% of whatever your household income is. If you have savings and you're looking to save more money, save at a rate of 20%. Do you see how much more money you never knew that you had? Now, make one very hard decision of an expense or vice to give up for 90 days. After that, make a second very hard decision of eating out for 210 days. Buy your groceries or use a grocery service instead. Cook at home. This is the cheapest, most effective, healthiest activity. Sit down and get to know the people who you live with. Do not eat out for 210 days. Make a third very hard decision of using the rigid Dave Ramsey method to get a good standing with your debt and to start saving for your future. Step 1. List your debts from smallest to largest regardless of interest rate. Step 2. Make minimum payments on all your debts except the smallest. Step 3. Pay as much as possible on your smallest debt. Step 4. Repeat until each debt is paid in full. Once you're done, resume life as usual. Repeat this full process until you've achieved all your financial goals. This is going to help you have enough money, but also see really what it is that you need versus what it is that you desire. Chapter 5. The years had passed. Dereck and Amelia have grown. Both faced tremendous torment through the trials of life, but tasted greater success still by working together. Each setback forced them to be creative and develop beyond the situation. They saw truth, not strife or agendas. They didn't pitch people or bide them along. Instead, they learned forgiveness, understanding, and negotiation. When troubles arise, they focused on the solution, not the problem or each other. Their businesses no longer charged an upfront fee. In fact, most of their work was done for free, helping those without the needed capital to fundraise. They created educational and motivational videos for entrepreneurs of other entrepreneurs, not focusing on themselves, but giving the spotlight and guidance to others. Dereck used 20% of his monthly income to experiment with stocks and cryptocurrency, listening to the late Aldous Huxley's advice to trust God and live wise. Dereck was turning 30. He no longer rushed his business plans. He enjoyed longer, drawn-out plans after saving up 15% of his income for a few months to a year for capital, and then multiplying his money indefinitely. He was sought after for his financial acumen, but Dereck rarely shared his secrets. He was enjoying himself and experimenting. He encouraged discipline, charity, and budgeting. Never invest in what you don't understand. Dereck didn't rest on his experiments of wealth and finances. Instead, he returned to school, getting a trade in plumbing, spending most of the past 5 years as an apprentice plumber for his local community. He worked a second job as a full-time marketing coordinator for a multi-millionaire, Solomon Bright. A fellow patient of the late Dr. Huxley, they bonded over drinks after the funeral 3 years back. The two loved Alistair as an uncle, so in turn called themselves cousins. They followed his strict advice, and even discussing how desperately Huxley tried to stop them from pushing their psychosis to its limits. Yet the two had a knack for bringing dreams to existence, seeing a vision others didn't understand. Amelia decided to retire young. She began to work from home, managing her family's blog, handling their communications, and raising their 2 children, a 2-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter. Amelia was self-convicted to leave her career entirely and work for herself full-time. She intended to return to work as a teacher, but wasn't in any rush, choosing to teach others how to enjoy their life. When Amelia and Dereck found out they were having their first baby, they sold their first home to purchase their current house. Money seemed to find them easily, and they focused on building deep relationships, not many. Their lives became centered on paying forward, assisting others in their financial, mental, and spiritual lives. Dereck realized the blockage was a focus to achieve their goals and set better goals than those being failed. All seemed perfectly fine for the loving couple until tax season approached. In their youth, they had never paid attention to taxes. They've only ever had to file W-2s or 1080 Easy, maybe a 1099 form. Their combined net worth had exploded well beyond the $250,000 from last tax season. Their financial resplendence was only through grit and God. It was inexplicable to them otherwise. They didn't know how much money they truly had and hadn't bothered to assess their true wealth, and the IRS was far more curious than either Amelia or Dereck had ever been. I feel like such a phony, Dereck bawled as he looked at his final notice from the IRS, who had been writing to their first home for weeks. Relax, Dereck, just breathe. You can get an accountant or a lawyer. The tax thieves won't take you away from me. Amelia kissed his neck, wrapping her arms around his waist. Dev couldn't have me, neither can the IRS. I never knew taxes were a thing, Dereck sighed. Are you kidding me? This entire time I thought you wanted an LLC for tax write-offs. Amelia giggles. I wanted it for the freedom they'll never take away from me. Dereck clenched his fist. Relax, Dereck. You can let yourself get stressed out. We'll be right back where we started. I think we need to get some ice cream. Amelia kissed his cheek and skipped off to get the children ready. Dereck sat at the edge of the bed. He had been obsessing over the taxes all morning and afternoon. He concluded using an LLC and their charity as a tax write-off could save them. He didn't understand taxes or where to start at first. His 5-year plan never included such an idea. He quietly thanked God in his prayers, taking extra time to himself, letting Amelia head to the farm for fresh ice cream. He was still in the bed when Amelia returned, calling out to him to come downstairs. Dereck came downstairs, feeling like a child when his mother asked for help with the groceries. He spotted the family schedule pinned on the fridge, decorated with flowers and race cars from his children. Time and money management was his central focus for the past years. But the idea of taxes escaped him. Tomorrow was his day with the children, and Amelia was off to the spa. She scheduled a Groupon date with herself a month in advance. It was prepaid and made no sense not to go. One of them needed to be stress-free. Dereck loved time with his kids. Their innocence and natural creativity helped spark many of his business ideas. As he monitored them playing with their ice cream rather than eating, the time became meditative. The two did anything to avoid sitting still or staying in one place for too long. As long as the ice cream remained off the floor, he didn't mind them running off. He'll likely find them in the most curious situations when he decided to go after them in the living room. He had another idea. All right, you two, it's time for bed, Dereck called out to get ready for work. We can't yet, Dad. We're playing garden, his 2-year-old son came in and shouted back. He walked in to find the 1-year-old sitting in the planting pot, covered up to her waist in potting soil. What is this, bud? Dereck rubbed the bridge of his nose. I'm planting a sister tree, so we have another kid to play with soon, Cayman explained as if it was a parent. I'm a plant, Daddy, Sky cheered. Who will you play with as your little sister turns into a tree? Dereck riddled. The 2-year-old thought long and hard, and Sue came up with the answer. I guess I have to get her out now, the 2-year-old sighed. You two need to go upstairs and take a bath before I show you how my parents raised me. Get your baby sister tree, and I'll put away the ice cream. Can you plant a little brother tree tomorrow instead? We can get seeds at the store, his son asked. I'll think about it. Now hop to it, bud. Dereck pointed to the stairs. A few hours had passed, and Amelia rolled over in bed, finding Dereck reading nonstop. She rolled back over, thinking nothing of it. She was happy he was finally using the Kindle her mother bought him. Amelia woke a few hours later to use the bathroom to see him nodding off while reading the screen in night mode. His pupils moved mechanically until she placed a hand over his eyes, soon hearing snores. Amelia kisses his forehead and laid him down. As she lifted the Kindle, she noticed he was 99% done with the book on tax filing for the self-employed. Amelia pumped her fist, knowing something amazing followed. She handled her bathroom business to return to bed. Amelia joyfully dreamed of her spa day and the brilliant signature her husband would execute. Their alarm rang, and Amelia stretched out in bed to find Dereck gone before she could reward him for last night. She hated when he would sneak out of bed, but the smell of blueberry waffles quelled her disappointment. Amelia walked down in her bathroom to find both her children fully dressed, playing with their American bulldog and Bengal cat. Sky held on to the dog's collar, trying to get to full saddle as the bulldog walked about to shake her off. Cayman sat peacefully, reading a picture book to the cat. Dereck was by the waffle maker, oblivious to the United Species Committee meeting in their den. He was engulfed in a lecture on tax law. A stack of tax forms laid on the kitchen island. The memo said, "From Solomon Bright, go get 'em, bud." Solomon owned many businesses and still managed to self-file his taxes. He spent decades learning about taxes and hiring others before he felt comfortable doing it himself. The first year he did, he received more money than ever before. He had spoken to Dereck about the lectures, books, and files he would need. Dereck listened to his mentor and followed suit. Amelia refrained from interrupting Dereck as she set the table, grabbing the organic maple syrup and buttered corn syrup variant. She noted she would need to buy more of the artificial kind, as apparently she was the only one who used the healthier variety. It wasn't a bother. She already had her coupons saved on her cell phone for all their frequent purchases, and the store usually offered more coupons when she was done shopping. Dereck's lecture finished up, giving him time to take the plate of waffles, sausage, and spinach salad to the table, juggling them with his tablet as he fired up another lecture. "No, don't, no electronics at the table." Amelia finally put her foot down, taking away the ceramic bowl she had made, filled with spinach, carrots, and vinaigrette dressing as she loved it. But, but, Dereck was unplugged, attempting to readjust to real life again. "It can wait for your family," Amelia recited his favorite phrase, kissing him on the cheek. Dereck wanted to persist, but he looked over to the children inside, helping to set the table and make everyone's plate. When they were done, he kissed Amelia again, ensuring to thank her for her help. Amelia held on to him, wishing they could have had an hour to enjoy themselves privately. She relents, not quite ready to have another kid. "You're lucky, Mr. Hoffman. I'll spare you for now," Amelia muttered as she pinched his cheek. "What?" Dereck chuckled. "Oh, you'll find out one day when you're older," Amelia played cool. "Oh, wow, bro." He blushed, quickly putting it together. The family enjoyed the delicious meal, especially the homemade waffles. After sitting down for a family breakfast, the kids helped their father clean the entire kitchen. Amelia went upstairs to get ready for her appointment. Dereck washed the last of the dishes, listening to an audiobook on tax breaks by Jeff Schneppner. In the back of his head, Dereck was putting together that there was a puppet show and guest reader at the public library that lined up perfectly with Amelia's appointment. They took one car to save on gas and mileage, dropping off Mommy first with a vow to return, then driving to the library. The children came in and Sky sat transfixed on the puppet show. Dereck was at the computers typing up his 4-part taxation and financial recovery plan for the family's blog. The more he learned, the less his fears controlled him. Creativity consumed him, and he found his flow, the 4-step plan. First, account for all monies, assets, donations, expenses, and projects for the prior year. Compile a cash flow analysis to state taxable income, business expenses, and tax write-offs like home equity. Second, going directly after a credit score to dispute claims, searching for more write-offs and improve credit score. Between these 2 steps, begin working to begin in your financial recovery. Third, compile one list specifically for the tax write-offs in case there is a need for investigation or audit. Fourth, file the taxes and mail in dispute letters to go from defense into offense. Now he was seeking a tax return and recidification for mistakes by the credit bureau. By this time, his children were listening to the story of the grasshopper and ants. When the story was over, his 2-year-old ran up to him. The 1-year-old was crawling over, lifting her arms up to be picked up and put to bed from her busy day. His alarm went off as he soothed Sky's grumpiness, bringing him back to reality. He gave himself enough time to drive back to the spa before his wife's appointment ended to keep her from waiting. Dereck gathered himself with a sigh of relief. He finished everything he could do. All that was left was mailing in his forms and letters. He quickly logged out of all his personal information, erased the cache and cookies. The library had its own security system that wiped its rinse memory clean for the next user. He was off to get Amelia. Amelia came out of the spa, radiating sunshine and positivity as she slipped into the passenger seat. She edified her husband on how mandatory spas are and how it should be included in health insurance. Dereck pulled his family into a local diner to continue listening to Amelia's political platform on mandatory essentials, while the kids ate french fries and salad for $5. Amelia spoke on how important massages, pedicures, and saunas were for mental health while chewing on a cheeseburger. Dereck ate a hearty cup of soup with the saltines provided by the diner. Amelia finished singing her diatribe on how relaxing her spa trip had been. She had finally convinced Dereck to join her next time and to let his mother or father watch the kids. Amelia finished talking, but the entire time she couldn't take her eyes off the stack of envelopes poking out of the baby bag. Her curiosity spoke volumes. Before she could open her mouth again, she began shifting the topic from the spa to a property she saw a few days ago, beginning the financial conversation to finally capture Dereck's full attention. Dereck's hand tapped on the envelopes with a wild grin. He had been courteous as she spoke, downplaying his own progress. When Amelia finally asked flat out about the taxes, he swaggered over to clean Cameron's mouth and hands from ketchup and French dressing. It's Gucci. Your man's got it all figured out finally. They really tried to overcomplicate taxes, but we kept great accounting and bookkeeping at an A-plus level. Tracking our expenses and income was easier than I thought, only because of that. Dereck finished cleaning Cameron, then began with Sky, who was fussy over her nap. So what's your goal now, baby? Amelia asked, watching as their daughter fought for more fries as her father cleaned her up. It's a very simple 4-point plan. I already did the first 3 steps. First, I assessed our actual net worth. Second, I disputed everything possible in my credit history and looked for tax write-offs on our purchases. Thirdly, I found the LLC from 2 years ago, the one I never got to use. It's at the top of a list of all the tax write-offs. Why does the LLC help you now? Don't they expire? Amelia asked as she calmly took the open ketchup away from Sky. Well, yes, after about 3 decades, we started the LLC my second year of plumbing apprenticeship. That's when most of these projects really started showing actual profit. I assessed and tracked everything for a year. We spent a great deal on software, properties, and equipment. Our charitable expenses are also tax deductible. I guess it's technically a 5-step system. The secret step is gathering all the necessary information into one place to be able to focus. The library also had TurboTax CD available to check out. I also grabbed more books on joint filing and starting a nonprofit, and a few DVDs. I'll end up getting back a few $100,000 at least. Dereck handed over all the paperwork for review. Amelia's jaw dropped in amazement. How? What? Do my taxes next. I think I might have to start an LLC for it, honestly. It takes a few hours of time to do it correctly, but I could definitely invest in the tax, credit, and debt solutions venture. We can do full financial overhauls for people. Dereck was relieved. I love you, Amelia applauded. Cameron and Sky began clapping wildly, though they had no idea why other than the fun of copying Mommy and Daddy. The waitress came over with their bill. Their bill came up to $20 after a tip. As the waitress returned with Dereck's debit card, she was joined by the restaurant manager and owner, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation. Dereck was their on-call plumber. They had always wondered how he did so well for himself and what he did with his money. After hearing he was moving into tax and debt, they had dozens of questions, begging to be his first customer to avoid having their diner closed down. They have struggled for years properly filing taxes because despite their profits, neither understood deductions, payroll, or their financial statements. There's also a broken toilet they needed a new one ordered and installed. Dereck suddenly remembered he hadn't even accounted for his earnings as a unionized plumber, and he still had a W-2 to submit. Dereck attempted to calmly dismiss himself and his family, but had to let them go ahead to the car as he wrote down people's numbers, concerns, and answering tax questions. He took another week to file his taxes, ensuring everything was correct, having a few contacts look over his work. While his tax return was under review, they spent the week donating their unused clothes and items to clean out the house. He filed for the new LLC, tracking every business and tax-related expense during the week to apply once he was registered. By the week's end, he had an LLC, an accountant, lawyer, and financial advisor partnered up to address his 50 ready customers. The other three had been nervous to split their time, but Dereck ensured he would teach them how to manage their time wisely, as the four partners taught their town how to manage their finances. The four partners started from the ground, writing up a contact list of 1,000 people. Dereck persevered from grit and experience. He ended up making the calls alone after 500 people rejected them repeatedly. It demoralized his partners, but only reminded Dereck of how he reached this point. Dereck sat by the phone, postponing everything else until the calls were finished. He made 100 plus calls a day. Many didn't feel they earned enough to pay someone to do their taxes and declined. He agreed, advising they used free tax software from the library. He avoided a sales pitch, relying on education and expertise. Calling the next 100 bravely, remembering sitting in the asylum library, using the librarian's phone to call only 30 people 5 years ago, and how difficult it felt. 250 people were excited about the service, but had already filed their taxes for the year. They knew they didn't get all their money back, and the conversation ended shortly with promises of the following tax season. Dereck promised to follow up with them at the end of the week to see if they wanted a tax amendment. 100 of the 250 had never heard of such a thing as an amendment, and ensured they would call back once they could think it through before April 15th to give them time to file. The remaining 200 people had yet to file taxes and promised to make a decision after looking over the website and reading the free blog information the other three partners wrote while Dereck manned the phones. Each needed to be delegated to their strengths to stay motivated. Dereck was exhausted, and when his phone bill came from his 35 month-to-month plan, he tore it up, saying he would pay it once he recharged his social battery in a month. Amelia was overjoyed at how quickly it came together. Their love grew not from the finances, but in his amazing creativity, compassion, and ambition. He amazed her with how he always found a way to pull them through. She vowed to herself to support and love Dereck even if they lost everything, knowing it wasn't a question if he would do the same because he supported her when they were facing evictions and breakup. He loved her no matter what. In the first year, the concept had evolved from the tedium of filing people's taxes to a year-round service of helping people find their wealth, educating, motivating, and remaining open for communication. The focus was on helping people learn to properly manage their money, business, assets, and moving their income from dead gates and depletion into directions that would multiply their hard-earned wealth. They served their neighborhood, proudly raising the property value and starting a mutual fund where denizens could opt in and earn money together at a minimum of $2,000. They focused on helping individuals earning a minimum of $30,000 annually, business owners, investors, or married couples. 99% of their clientele found their way to prosperity, morality, and community, and happier lives. Dereck went from the young boy facing people who had never considered the financial futures to becoming a man leading his town to financial prosperity. He claims his life was never controlled by money, but by becoming a steward, a master of his money, who still lived as a modest plumber serving his community. What did you learn? The generative his face. You were sitting on knowledge, a skill, a talent, or a vision very valuable. Money comes, barter is better. You should use this to help other people. Donate your time to helping others when called upon. Have a reputation of being timely, reliable, and trustworthy. Donate your unused clothes, food, monies, or volunteer to a charity. Assess all your assets, incomes, and expenses. List everything. Spend a day at the library, coffee shop, bookstore, under a tree in your backyard, or at a park. Get out of your normal headspace and focus. What of these are tax deductible? What tax form is associated with it? Go to www.irs.gov to find out. Invest in a professional to do your taxes if you are not willing to become a professional. You can use H&R Block, local tax services, build a relationship with financial experts. You can go to Chamber of Commerce meetings and memberships. Ask them who does their taxes like you would ask who does your hair. Network with these people. Get their business card. Talk about your families. What do both of you enjoy, and leave an impression. This has been lovely. While there is still more to go to take action on your goals, building a functional system, and managing your debt. However, all that separates you now is action, forms, and time. Be patient. Enjoy the people around you, and enjoy your community. Money is focus times energy over time, so spend it wisely in your actions. Thank you for reading my guide to a wealthier, healthier, more successful life. Daryl Omar Shabazz.